How's it going, ladies and bruises? I'm Bobby Sixkilla, welcome back to Route Double. We're heading to Ukita's house because apparently he's the adult that we can trust the most. Well, him and Enna, of course, but he was closer, so Ukita is first. Whew, we're finally here. Masato took a deep breath, finally relieved from all the tension of having to avoid notice. Now, how's Mr. Ukita? Natsuhiko pressed the doorbell as he spoke. However, there was no response no matter how many times he pressed the button. Huh, looks like he's not at home. Where would he be so early in the morning? Work, I guess. Ukita was a labo researcher. He may have been too busy at work to have gone home last night. Looks like a swing and a miss right off the bat, huh? Nothing we can do about it, so let's move on to... An angry shout interrupted Masato. Natsuhiko? They turned around in shock to see a woman in a lab coat standing in front of the house next door. It was a face I hadn't seen in days, Natsuhiko's mother, Dr. Miyoko Tenkawa. Crap. The professor briskly walked toward them as Natsuhiko silently cursed this unexpected turn of events. I got a call from the security department last night. They say you injured a security guard at the PRC. Oh, I see how it is. So you came back just for that? Of course I did. Never in my dreams did I expect my own son would do something like that. Yui, you were there with him. What were you thinking? I'm sorry. You too, Masato. They said you were there with them too. I'm sorry, but... Natsuhiko glared back at the professor as she scolded them. Hold on a second, Mum. They have nothing to do with this, do they? No, in fact, you don't have anything to do with this, Mum. This is our problem. I don't have anything to do with this? Of course I do. I had to be dragged out of my busy work schedule. The professor sighed deeply. Please, just don't add to my problems needlessly. I'm busier than I've ever been with my current work. Something snapped inside Natsuhiko. The professor's son and his friends were being pursued on the pretext of a false charge, and yet she wouldn't listen to any of it. And to top it all off, she was still trying to focus on work. Okay, Mum, sorry for being a pest. Just go back to Labo and work already. How do you expect me to just do that? How? It's easy. You keep talking about work this and work that. If it's so important to you, then just go already. He felt something murmur in his heart as he spoke. He knew he sounded like a spoiled child, but he couldn't stop the words from leaving his lips. They're pursuing us based on a false charge. We were partly at fault, but that security guard lied in his report. Huh? And we're not even doing anything wrong. We're just searching for the terrorists in town. Terrorists? What are you talking about? There's a very likely possibility they're here, so we're doing what we can to stop them. You kids, stop terrorists? Don't be foolish. The professor raised her voice sharply. Listen to me, stop spouting nonsense and just stay inside like I'm telling you to. No, this is my own decision. I can't just back down and listen to you. Is there something I'm not giving you enough of? I provide you with a carefree life, haven't I? Well, yeah, you've been providing for us financially, but that doesn't give you the right to criticize every action I take. How do you expect me to listen to everything you say when you're never around to say it? The professor's face froze over at those words. Natsuhiko, stop it. You've said too much. Masato and Salu frantically cut in, but that was something Natsuhiko had always wanted to tell his mother. He couldn't stop the words he'd been holding back all this time. You took custody of Yuri after her parents died, right? I thought that was very noble of you. But can you look me in the eye and say you've become a new mother for her? I know it's too late for me to say this now, but you've always been too preoccupied with work to even care about what happened at home, haven't you? Do you realize how lonely Yuri and I were growing up in a house without parents to welcome home at night? Do you know how it felt? What it felt like? Watching over Yuri as she struggled with her emotional trauma? Of course Yuri's completely innocent here. I'm grateful for how you managed to support the family as a single mother, I truly am. That's why I never said anything. But this is the last. Just then a weak smack rang out against Natsuhiko's cheek. It was the frail slap of his mother's palm against his cheek. You hit me. That's a first. Guess you had to start acting like a parent somewhere, huh? Natsuhiko made it that far before gasping. For he saw tears welling up on the professor's eyes. It was all for you. I'm trying my hardest just for you. Huh? Natsuhiko, you made the professor cry. How cruel. You should apologize. Bitter regret filled his heart as the girls admonished him. But what felt stronger than his regret was his confusion. It was all for me? I never asked for this. So what? Okay, Adam Jensen. So why? Why are you crying? What's with that timing? He couldn't understand his mother's feelings. Dr. Tenkawa continued in a low voice. Natsuhiko, I'm begging you, please listen to me for now. I need to go back to Labo right away, but we can talk as much as we want afterwards. For now? What do you mean, Mum? Is there something you want to tell me? No. Does it have anything to do with what's going on? Not at all. Though I do think one day the time will come that we can talk about it. The professor spoke insinuative words. Natsuhiko wanted to know what was on her mind. He wanted to know from the bottom of his heart for the very first time. Mum, what are you trying to say? As that thought crossed his mind, his 5 senses suddenly faded into the distance. His vision blurred, his hearing diminished, and instead, voices echoed in Natsuhiko's brain. I knew it. He hates me. Oh my god, we can do mind reading now? We can do empathy now as well? But until all the work's complete, it'd be best if I just avoided it. Natsuhiko was shocked. The sensation was quite similar to receiving telepathy, but not entirely. He heard a voice directly echoing in his head, but Natsuhiko had heard Dr. Tenkawa's mental voice. This is empathy? As soon as Natsuhiko had that thought, his 5 senses returned. Natsuhiko. He snapped back when he heard Mashiro's voice up against his ear. What happened? Someone's coming this way. He turned around in shock to see 2 men running in their direction from the other side of the street. They were the security department members who were standing in front of Mashiro's house yesterday. Damn it, did they see us already? He was concerned about the meaning of his mother's tears, and if he had just used empathy, but let's head out of here. Natsuhiko quickly shouted that command, and with just a moment of hesitation, Mashiro and Salu nodded. I'm sorry, Professor, we have to go now. Professor, I'll protect Natsuhiko. No need for concern. And with that, the 3 of them ran away, leaving both behind Dr. Tenkawa hanging her head in shame. Run! Run, you two! Natsuhiko frantically ran, urging the girls to do so as well. Let's escape to somewhere devoid of people for now. It'll be too hard to tell who's who with the security department in a crowd. In accordance with Salu's suggestion, they ran from the urban areas. The situation was different from their escape last night. They'd taken advantage of the cover of dark. Sorry. But this time it was a challenge purely of stamina and agility. Salu seemed like she had more than enough stamina, but Mashiro's rough breathing was loud and clear. Her stamina could give out at any moment. Natsuhiko took Mashiro by the hand, and right when they thought they'd finally shaken off the men, a car appeared in their path. Orokume City's emblem was painted on the side. The security department again. This way, you two. Natsuhiko detoured into a side street. They continued into a narrow, unpaved road that seemed inaccessible to cars. Crap, they'll overtake us at this rate. Is there nowhere we can hide? I don't know. Mashiro cried bitterly. Her voice sounded so pained. Mashiro was by no means fast on her feet, and her physical strength was subpar at best. Damn it, at this rate, Mashiro's gonna... The security department's presence was gone for now, but by no means did that mean that they could stop. They ran at random through narrow streets so as to make themselves harder to track. Wait, I can't go on. Mashiro finally threw in the towel. At that very moment, beyond the grass lining the side of the road, they saw an old abandoned building. That's it, let's hide in there. Huh? Oh yeah. The kids stumbled into the building. It was a dark, empty place. Despite its considerable size, there was no sign of anybody else. The kids took deep breaths. To think we could escape their pursuit here for a bit? Quite possibly. I checked when we got here, but there were no surveillance cameras near the entrance. Thank goodness. That was honestly a close one. Mashiro spoke as she caught her breath. They seemed to have finally recovered. She took a look around and suddenly opened her eyes as if she noticed something. Huh? Isn't this place... Huh? Something up? Oh, this is our secret base, isn't it? Huh? Oh, you're right. Now she mentioned it, it was. It was the abandoned factory that Natsuhiko and the other children played in, their so-called secret base. Man, this place hasn't changed a bit. Well, it's so big that even just demolishing it would be expensive after all. This is perfect, since this place is familiar territory to us and all. Let's rest here for a bit. I guess we should wait for things to cool off again. I wiped off the sweat and leaned against the wall. Sally looked a little tired too as she whispered, "The security department's making it hard to move around. Yeah, we've made a nuisance of an enemy, haven't we? The very townspeople we swore to protect have become our enemies. Quite ironic. I'd always known the security department to be a reliable organisation, but now they were painfully aware of just how diligent they were. Mum could have just stopped those security department freaks for us." That thought reminded Natsuhiko of something. He remembered that strange voice he'd heard back when he saw his mother. Oh right, guys, please listen. Huh? What's up? Actually, when I was talking to Mum, I heard her mental voice for some reason. Her mental voice, you mean... empathy? I don't know, but probably. Mashido's eyes widened at those words. Wait, you're serious, Natsuhiko? Isn't that a little too quick? You only started using telepathy just recently, didn't you? Like yesterday, yeah. Well, it was for just a second, but I'm sure I heard it. Try it out on me for a second. My heart's totally open right now, so try to listen to my mental voice. I'm quite interested too. Please try it out. Yeah, sure. Natsuhiko put a finger to his brow, a trick used for empathy. He shut his eyes and tried listening to the girls' mental voices. Please tell me what you guys are thinking. But for some reason, he couldn't concentrate too well. Compared to telepathy, which only required focusing on a simple message, empathy seemed like it'd be several times more difficult to him. How about it, Natsuhiko? Did you hear my mental voice? No, it's not working. Looks like it's the same as telepathy. Seems I can only use it when I'm truly focusing. I see. Were you focusing intensely when you were talking with the professor? Yeah, I guess. I mean, she did cry all of a sudden, so yeah. What was on the professor's mind? Well, it wasn't anything special. She was mad and sad and stuff. Natsuhiko awkwardly tried to gloss over the details. He recalled his mother's mental voice. I knew it, he hates me. But until all the work is complete, it'd be best if I avoided him. Why avoid? That's a weird word to use, right? Mum was thinking things like that. They were quite unexpected thoughts, though that was assuming what Natsuhiko heard was actual empathy and not just an auditory hallucination. Right, maybe it was just an auditory hallucination. Huh? You're right, Mashido, there's no way I could start using empathy so quickly. Maybe I was just hearing things. I didn't even identify Mum's characteristic brain waveform after all. Maybe. That's okay though. Mashido appeared to be preoccupied with other things. I guess this isn't the time to be talking about this. As soon as they started the search, they were nearly detained by the security department. And despite being the first to nearly throw in the towel, Mashido was probably doing her best to endure. Natsuhiko thought he'd try to casually break the tension with some optimistic conversation. But still, you know, Mashido, this place sure brings back memories, huh? Huh? What do you mean? I'm talking about the past. This is where we used to gather as kids, after all. Oh yeah, you're right, this place does bring me back. Mashido looked around the ruined factory with distant eyes. Eyes that were perhaps seeing images of the past. More talk about your shared past? Sorry, is it boring you? Not at all, I want to hear more. Well, it's not that big a deal, but... With that introduction, Natsuhiko began to tell a story. In those days, we'd gather here a lot and get excited over trying to solve the 7 wonders of Rokume City. 7 wonders? They're these 7 urban myths this town has. Like what? Well, let's see. What were they again? Natsuhiko thought hard to remember them. Let's see, number 1, Labo doesn't conduct nuclear power research, they conduct arms production and other dangerous national matters. Huh? No way. The professor does that sort of research? No, it's just a baseless rumour, nothing more. That's a relief. But you see, when we were kids, we actually believed in this nonsense. Natsuhiko continued with a wry smile. Number 2, the burned ruins of the old Rokume City Hospital are haunted by the ghosts of someone who died in the fire. Is there such thing as ghosts? Number 3, the surveillance cameras in town aren't meant to prevent crime, but to observe ordinary citizens. It would be hard to call that absurd based on what happened today. Number 4, there exists a righteous organisation that fights evil communicators who misuse BC. They're commonly referred to as the BC Police. Their true identity is shrouded in mystery, but they're headquartered in Rokume City. Is that real life or just something from an anime? Well, you know, now that I think about it, the whole thing was more like a joke. What were the other things? Right, we haven't gotten to the best ones yet. Mashido grinned broadly as she spoke to Salia. Number 5, if a communicator uses BC without knowing the proper way, they will eventually turn into a mind-broken monster. Yeah, that's the one. The 5th wonder was one step beyond the others in terms of eeriness. Salia's expression clouded over upon hearing it too. Monster? What do you mean they'll become a monster? Actually, this is still a firmly rooted rumour, but remember how it's been said that BC still has many unknown factors? Yeah. Well, it's only to be expected, you know. After all, we still don't understand the workings of the brain that well. So if you self-study BC and practice using a failed methodology, it could put an odd load on your brain, and if that accumulates, they say eventually your mind will break. Sully's face clearly stiffened. Mashido continued in an even more exaggerated tone. And as for the mind-broken communicators, they become monsters who use abhorrent BC abilities and cursed telepathy to scatter madness among people all around them. So to prevent the birth of such monsters, the government established communicator-exclusive schools, like Rokume Academy. Sully jolted back in fear. Despite her lack of fear of ghosts, it seems she could still be scared by such stories with questionable realism. Well, it might not be necessarily false. I'm not so sure that the monster prevention part, but our school does make brainwave scans and aptitude tests as part of the students' yearly physical examinations. Then if one of those monsters had ever arisen, there'd have to be records of it. Any such records? None, nobody's seen any. See, just a baseless rumour then. No, you should hold on to your conclusions till after you hear the next one. Huh? As Sully tilted her head, Natsuhiko thrust his finger at her and spoke up. Number 6. Monsterified people are captured by a secret task force working under the Rokume City Security Department and are imprisoned underground beneath the municipal office. In short, the security department hides all of the monsters away from the public eye, and that's why you never hear of any. No. Sully's face was already pale, her voice powerless. Natsuhiko just kept it coming. And one to number 7. But before he could finish, he forgot what it was. Huh? Mashiro, what was number 7? That one was like a supplement to number 5. Basically, no more, 6 is enough. A flustered Sully spoke up. She apparently wasn't good with this sort of talk after all. Oh, Sully, you a scaredy cat? Shut up, Mashiro. Now, there's nothing wrong with you acting your age for once, it's cute. Shut up, Natsuhiko, I suggest you quit. Sully lightly slapped Natsuhiko and Mashiro on the cheeks. Ow, sorry, Sully. I'm sorry I scared you so much. It was a joke. Yeah, they're just rumors after all. That's fine then. I don't talk about these things again or I'll get really mad. Okay. Man, we were so childish, weren't we? They smiled at each other, and thus before they knew it, the heavy atmosphere had somehow abated. Mashiro sure is tough. She's already bounced back. Now that he thought about it, she was always like that. She had an indomitable will that allowed her not to shrink back when cornered, but to find enjoyment out of even the toughest of times. That's right, she was like that back then too, huh? And with that thought, he had a recollection of another childhood memory. It was a story that happened after they set Sirius free outside the gate. Natsuhiko and Mashiro had run away from the guard station there, and as they ran recklessly, they found themselves at a ruined factory at the edge of town before they knew it. It was the place they'd turned into their secret base. Yes, we set Sirius free. Yeah, we did it. Natsuhiko and Mashiro laughed out loud. What they felt the most wasn't the sadness of parting with Sirius, nor the fear of getting caught by the guard, but rather the sense that they'd truly accomplished something. They'd saved a life. Natsuhiko was glad and proud of himself. He'd experienced some terribly mortifying memories in that ruined factory, but for that moment, he had forgotten about them. Hey, Mashiro? What, Natsuhiko? We've been rivals so far, but now and forever, we're allies of justice, aren't we? Yeah. Let's keep protecting the town's peace. Yeah. Don't wait for someone else to protect what you hold dear. Protect it with your own hands, right? Mashiro smiled softly as she spoke. Natsuhiko lost his breath. Not because she'd quoted him, but because Mashiro's smile looked strangely charming to him in the moonlight. Huh? What's wrong? Your face is red. No, it's nothing. You're weird. Mashiro tilted her head and suddenly changed the subject. Anyway, what do we do after this? Huh? What do you mean? If we go home now, our mums will surely be angry, right? It's so late at night after all. Yeah, now that you mention it. He hadn't thought about it. Natsuhiko spoke the first thing that came to mind. Then why don't we go on a journey of justice together? I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds good. Let's do it. I know, right? We get a bunch of bad guys, we'll punish the evil healthcare center too. If we do, then Sirius can come back to town, right? Yeah, someday. But in that case, it looks like we've got a lot of enemies ahead of us. So we need more allies to help us, don't we? It really would be tough for just the two of us, huh? Their fun laughter echoed in the dark, secret base. However, Natsuhiko knew, and Mashiro probably noticed too. It was impossible for two children like them to go on a journey, all by themselves. But Natsuhiko chose to ignore that reality as he spoke up cheerfully. Well, nothing we can do about that right now. I guess let's put the journey on pause and just go home for today. Too bad. We just have to go home and get scolded. Don't let it get to you. We did what we did to fulfill heroic duties. So let's not sneak around like cowards, but march as heroes. Let's go. Natsuhiko took Mashiro by the hand and started to walk. For a second, Mashiro looked surprised. Yeah, but she soon replied with a broad grin. As he saw her smile, Natsuhiko thought to himself, if only this journey could continue forever, instead of ending when they got home. He felt like he could walk like this anywhere, so long as Mashiro was with him. It sure brings me back. Now that he thought about it, they'd hidden in this very same ruined factory. Perhaps that memory was what cheered Mashiro up. Still, it would have been great if you were there with us back then, Salu. Then we could have played together and you wouldn't have to feel left out in all these reminiscent talks, you know? It's a shame. Mashiro and Salu cheerfully talked amongst themselves. We need more allies, huh? At the very least, we've got one more now. They were fine with just the three of them. With that thought in mind, Natsuhiko piped up in a cheerful voice. Now let's leave the past at that. We should think about how we're going to continue the search. Mashiro and Salu's faces tensed at the words. You're right. After all, things out there should have cooled down by now. No, it's probably too naive to assume that. They're probably lurking around here somewhere. We're safe here, but there will be surveillance cameras everywhere once we go to an open area. We can't move around freely at this rate. I see, that's annoying. What do we do? Natsuhiko pondered that question for a bit. I know, let's use a taxi for our transportation from now on. Huh? If we can manage to make it to the main road, we can hail a taxi there. Then we can rent it out for the day. The security department probably won't expect us to go through that much effort. Well, that does sound nice, but how will we pay for it? I've been saving up for a rainy day, and today's the day. Wait, are you sure? Sure, I'm sure. It's not like I got any other use for it. That was the money Natsuhiko had been meticulously saving up from his allowance and New Year's red envelopes ever since elementary school. His lack of hobbies meant he had no use for the money, so he had an absurd amount of savings in the bank. He should have around 200,000 yen. I'm pretty sure that should be enough to rent out a taxi. 200,000 yen? Bloody hell. Oh, looking kinda cool, Mr. Moneybags. That certainly does sound safe. Okay, then that settles it then. He'd never do something as extravagant as reserving a taxi for a whole day, but now wasn't the time to mind such details. So after we've successfully hailed a taxi, where do we go next? Well, Mr. Ikita wasn't home and it doesn't look like we can depend on Mum. So I guess we gotta go with Miss Enna then, huh? Or we could also go with our original plan and go to the PRC. Natsuhiko pondered which route to take, and a moment later he gave his answer. Let's follow Salu's judgment here. We should go to the PRC. Do you think we'll be okay? According to what we overheard from those policemen, the police and security department are tightening their guard around the city's important facilities. But I want to put that security guard in his place ASAP. Don't you, Salu? Agreed. I'll throw him down again if I need to. That sounds like it'd just complicate things even further. Well, whatever. Anyway, let's rent out a taxi and head to the PRC. And with that exchange of words, the kids dashed out of the ruined factory. They ran from cover to cover and somehow managed to reach a convenience store beside the main road. For now, Natsuhiko withdrew 100,000 yen, or half his total savings. And thus, they had enough to cover their transportation costs, but the convenience store's surveillance cameras had likely caught Natsuhiko on film. He'd covered his face with his hand, but there was still the possibility that they could track his movements through his ATM card history. I mustn't stay here a moment longer than I need to. Gotta get out of here before the security department arrives. With that thought in mind, Natsuhiko dashed out of the convenience store. Mashiro, Salu, I withdrew the money. Mashiro and Salu turned around once Natsuhiko shouted. They'd been waiting by the main road and had just hailed a taxi. Thanks, Natsuhiko. Now hurry, this way. Natsuhiko nodded and rushed to the taxi. Okay, where to? As he opened the door, Natsuhiko answered the driver's question with a question of his own. Excuse me, do you do full-day rentals? Huh? Rentals? Now that's an unusual request, not that I'm complaining. How much? 45,000 yen for 8 hours. Now that's expensive. But we don't have time to hesitate. Let's hurry in, Natsuhiko. Right. And with that, the kids piled into the car. The driver spoke in a tone of voice that was suddenly a lot more polite. Thank you for your patronage. Now, where may I take you first? To the PRC. Understood. Voice command, navigate to Parapsychology Research Center, drive mode automatic, normal. Initiate drive sequence. The driver commanded the automatic driving system, and the taxi nimbly took off. What the fuck is the driver for then? He's taking the money. He's just there as the ATM machine, as the swipey machine. But once they reached the PRC, the building's perimeter was dotted with police presence. The police really have tightened their guard. Mashiro whispered to Natsuhiko so that the driver wouldn't hear. The security department could be here too. Looks like it'll be hard to get inside and deal with the security guard. An error of judgment. Nothing we can do about it now. Let's go see Professor Tsubakiyama first. They didn't know where Ina lived, but perhaps they could find her at school. She was such a diligent teacher, she might still have gone to work even though it was a Sunday. And that thought crossed Natsuhiko's mind. The driver spoke up. Sir, madams, we've arrived. Are you not getting off? Sorry, Mr. Driver, please head to the school. Huh? Sure, of course. Confused, the driver started the car once more. Hey man, it's not your job to question it. You're getting paid. Just do the thing. After a little while, they arrived at the school. The gate was open even though it was a Sunday. Perhaps to let in teachers looking to get work done on their day off, or allow students to use the facilities for club activities. Mr. Driver, please go to the staff entrance at the rear. Gladly. The driver moved the car in accordance with Natsuhiko's directions, and then the kids got off the taxi at the staff entrance. Mr. Driver, please wait here, we'll be back later. Well, you are renting for the whole day, of course I'll wait. And with that voice at their backs, they entered the school. It was the same familiar school they attended, but they made sure to be as cautious as thieves. As they got inside, Sally muttered, Let's find Ina quick and... Hold up, Sally. Natsuhiko quickly stopped Sally. What's wrong? Listen carefully, I can hear something from over there. Natsuhiko pointed to the corner of the ceiling as he spoke, and there, he could hear the servo motors of a surveillance camera. There's a camera inside here too? The school's furnished with surveillance cameras to prevent intrusion by suspicious characters. Natsuhiko normally paid them no heed, because if he let their presence get to him every day, he'd never be able to stay calm. And we can't go to the staff room. Yeah, but if we can find a dead spot... As Natsuhiko began to speak, Mashido placed a finger to her temple. Hold on guys, I'm contacting Miss Ina through telepathy. Miss Ina, this is an emergency. That's me, Mashido Toppa. If you're at school, please come to the staff entrance. It's more reliable to do this than to try moving around. I see, so let's wait here then. And thus they waited for a while after Mashido sent her telepathy. And eventually Ina appeared. Miss Toppa, Mr. Tenkawa, and Miss Sanamiya too. Ah, Miss Ina, I'm glad you're here. What's happened with you three? You come here on a Sunday with an emergency? It's a long story. Can we talk about it somewhere without surveillance cameras? Ina watched Natsuhiko's tense entreaty with a serious look on her face. Sounds like a desperate situation, huh? The BC room's right over here. It doesn't have any surveillance cameras. We could talk in there. They slipped stealthily into the BC room. Ina stood at her podium as usual and spoke up. Now, let's hear it. You three have been acting strange since yesterday. What on earth happened? I don't know if you'll believe us, but we've been dragged into a bizarre incident. We wanted some advice, so we looked for you, Miss Ina. Incident? Advice? What might all this be about? Well, I guess we should start from the beginning. Natsuhiko retold the story of what happened since yesterday. What happened on the bus, the possibility of Q being in the city, and the reason the security department was chasing them. Though he did leave out the part about Mashido using empathy. Once the story was done, Ina muttered, I see, so that's what happened. Miss Ina, you believe us? Yes, you're my student, so I believe what you say. And I believe you kids acted in accordance with a pure sense of justice. The kids were about to sigh in relief, but what Ina said next stopped them in their tracks. But for that very reason, I don't think you should involve yourselves in this incident any further. No way, why not? As a teacher, there's no way I can approve of students putting themselves in danger, can I? Q is just that dangerous an organisation. Professor, you know about Q? Of course I do, I'm a teacher at Rokume Academy, you know. Apparently Mashido and the trainer were right. It did appear to be an infamous organisation. However, so why are you being so... As Mashido trailed off on her words, Ina spoke with an exasperated smile on her face. Right, if I want to tell you kids to understand where I'm coming from, it looks like a special lesson is in order. And it's not something I can teach in normal lectures, but I do believe it's something you three should know. A special lesson? Ina nodded and quietly began to speak. The truth is that BC and terrorism share an inseparable relationship. While I was studying parapsychology in college, I naturally learned the true history of BC. Society underwent many changes after the emergence of communicators. It's a history steeped in danger and extreme instability. A history steeped in danger? As you know, 16 years ago was a turning point with the explosive increase in the number of communicators worldwide, correct? But do you think society at that time just simply accepted it? You mean it didn't? Yeah, I thought communicators only had low ability levels back then. They knew that some people could use a bit of telepathy and that was it. The Esthers probably didn't think it was that big a deal, but not everyone else believed that, necessarily. Ina frowned as she spoke. At first, only a small minority of people displayed intense rejection of communicators. There was an incident in France on February 2014. Men obsessed with some delusion set fire to a village and a communicator lived in. Fire? It's terrible, why? A According to the arsonist, it was because communicators are abominations possessed by impure spirits. Impure spirits? What's that supposed to mean? Apparently there's a story in the Bible by the shore of the Sea of Galilee. There was a man possessed by impure spirits. He dwelled by the tombs and would often hear the spirit's voice and suffer. When asked for his name, the man replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." The impure spirits were eventually exorcised from the man's body, and instead they entered a nearby herd of pigs, upon which the pigs began to run like mad and fell into the lake one by one, where they drowned. It's quite an ominous story. What's up with that? I don't know. The significance behind the story has always been a subject of discussion amongst religious scholars, apparently. But this is what the arsonists thought. Communicators hear voices that we do not. Those are the voices of impure spirits. They are the abominations possessed by impure spirits, and therefore they must be punished by God. No way. That's crazy. Indeed, I think so too. Of course, those arsonists were punished, and fortunately, there were no casualties. Thus, the incident was soon forgotten. But in retrospect, that was the beginning, the start of the antagonism between communicators and ordinary people. Ina's expression remained unchanged, but her voice gradually grew more stern. Communicators were targeted by normal people for the sole fact that they were communicators, and those incidents only increased in frequency afterwards. In April that same year, a young American communicator was lynched in Brooklyn. The following month, an entire apartment building was burned to the ground in China. In June, it was Germany. In July, Italy and America. In August, it was Germany, France and Austria. In September, it was Russia, France, America and China. I had my hands full just counting all of the similar incidents. Did you know what's happened to this very town too? The great Rokume City arson? I know about that. Yes, you're a good learner, Miss Toba. It's not very well talked about incident nowadays. Ina spoke with a smile, but it was a smile tinged with sadness. These problems never happened back when communicators were extremely few in number and BC was dismissed as the occult. I do believe there were communicators before that, but at best the opinions available to them were options available to them to become leaders of New Age religions, to work as TV talents, or to hide their abilities, as most of them did, and live in secret. But as communicators started appearing more and more, their numbers rapidly grew. The situation instantly intensified. It was as if all of a sudden, a new breed of humans was born, and many people feared the demise of the old human race. It would have been fine if BC was something you could just learn if you put the effort in, but since BC aptitude is genetic and decided upon birth, well, Ina trailed off at that, allowing silence to fill the classroom. Even though the room temperature wasn't that cold, Natsuhiko felt his spine chill. A strange fear sank into his heart. Ina continued, that antagonism eventually turned into fear, and that fear gave birth to terrorism. Terrorism is derived from the Latin word terror, after all. People resort to terrorism either when they fear others or when they want others to fear them. It's a sad but inevitable course of events. I don't believe it. But aren't we at peace now? It took an extraordinary international effort to build that peace, and of course Japan was part of that effort. 2 years after the great Rokume City arson, the BC law was enacted to protect communicators, and at the same time, 6 cities in Japan were established as government-designated top-secret cities. Protective wards for communicators, beginning here with Rokume City. Communicators throughout the country were moved into these government-designated top-secret cities. They were moved? You mean they had no choice? No, it was at its core voluntary, but communicators living in the countryside received insistent advice from the government to move. Of course, the government reimbursed the full amount to move and even provided anything from occupation to housing referrals to large reserve funds on a case-by-case basis. Why would the government go that far? To preserve public order, nothing more. They wanted to diffuse the antagonism between communicators and ordinary people. The urgent matter at hand was to establish the idea that communicators all live in government-designated top-secret cities as common sense. By segregating the communicators and ordinary people, the ordinary people would be able to rest peacefully. The migration went over smoothly and friction was minimized, and so with all its communicators gathered in one spot, Japan was able to get its BC research organized for undisturbed progression and thus became an advanced BC nation. So basically, this town isn't merely a research city, it's a national fortress established by the state to protect communicators like you. When he heard the story to its end, Natsuhiko finally understood the truth behind this town. Or like a prison camp for communicators, so they don't piss off everybody else. That's just how I see it though. Why this town had such strong public order why the city was so vigilant against criminal activity, to the point of installing surveillance cameras in city gates. We heard that it was all to protect the local research facilities from industrial espionage, but were they actually trying to protect the communicators? Like the public order of society itself? It continued as the kids were left speechless, but the more society's system strengthened, the more crafty the terrorists became. And Q was the most crafty and vindictive organization of them all. You may know this already, but they have successfully carried out terrorism in the past, and as of yet, there haven't been any cases of them targeting government-designated top-secret cities, but I don't for a moment think your story is a joke, kids. Ina quietly sighed. It appeared that the reason she honestly believed their story was because it was a possibility she had feared from the start. I understand that Q is a dangerous organization, but why hasn't the police arrested them? That's because for the most part, Q's members consist of ordinary people who happen to be in the area of the operation. Ordinary people? Unlike extremist groups and town guerrillas of the past, Q doesn't make grandiose claims of its existence. And of course, they don't have any sort of hideout where they practice armed combat or anything. They merely use their proprietary network to search for ordinary people who dislike communicators, and then slowly convince those people to join the cause. But if the terrorists solicit, wouldn't they get caught right away? No, when they solicit like-minded people, they use various different names for camouflage. Bland names like the Association for Consideration of Relations with Communicators. But once they join those camouflaged organizations, the members themselves don't realize that they've actually joined Q. The majority of its own members don't understand the truth of the organization. The name Q itself is nothing more than a designation given for convenience. That's why it's hard for the police to make arrests. Is that how it works? That seems to be the reason why Natsuhiko hadn't even heard the name Q until just a few days ago. Because Q was a unique kind of terrorist organization, one whose very structure was ambiguous. But Q's top brass are working solely to commit terrorism though, right? Of course, the top brass have been pulling off terrorist acts for years by going through their countless subordinate members and selecting the ones most suitable to take the fall as the perpetrators. Oftentimes they choose staff members with connections to the target buildings to be perpetrators. The use of such sleeper agents increases the success rate of their terrorist acts. What supports the unity and belief is a hatred of the unknown. The mere thought that they're not like us is enough to incite them to hate others, ostracize them, injure them, and finally set towns ablaze. Their mentality is abnormal. There are people like that in the world? Natsuhiko's very core shuddered to hear the entire story. Not once in his life did he expect there to be people who hated communicators like him to that extent. We've never even met, we've never done anything wrong. That was when Natsuhiko first knew that the world was full of malice. A peaceful life was not a given, but rather something narrowly established on precarious balance. As the kids cast their eyes downwards at this newfound truth, Ina spoke to them gently. I'm sorry, it must be a shock. The ugly truth of society and the existence of genuine malice should be things left for you to find out when you grow up. That's why the school doesn't teach those things. It would give needless anxiety to the students and surely spread the seeds of antagonism too. This town polices information and filters the internet. Though honestly, if you look into it, you can still find out about Q's existence and whatnot. It did seem like an obvious decision on the school's part. If the school instilled the fear of ordinary people into the minds of all the communicators who attended, then the cycle of antagonism would never end. But you know, I thought you three would be able to accept the truth calmly. Miss Toba, the most diligent of the class, Miss Sanemiya, the wisest of the class, and Mr. Tenkawa, the one with the highest aptitude in the class. You're a mismatched trio, but that's why the three of you together can come to terms with this truth, right? Of course. Yeah, we're not the type to lose heart to some dumb malice like that or whatever. I've promised that even in the off chance something does happen, I'll protect these two. I see, I'm glad I told you then. Ina smiled sweetly and then spoke clearly and distinctly. Leave the rest up to the adults. You kids should behave and just stay put. Huh? I heard from the security department and the police after yesterday's bomb threat. They're already considering the possibility of terrorism. That's why the city's under martial law. If terrorism happens in the city now, it could shatter a system 10 odd years in the making. It might be harsh of me to say this, but it would just be a hindrance for kids to be moving back and forth. I'm sure the security department thinks so too, which is why they're trying to take you into protective custody. But you're telling us to just sit back and do nothing? We can't, the whole city could be in danger. Are you just gonna watch it happen, Miss Ina? I know, but I'm not just gonna watch. This town's so beautiful, it makes you want to protect it. Even if there really is a hole in its perfect surveillance system, this town is precious to its townspeople. As she spoke, Ina glanced at the classroom door. But even so, you three need to head home now, and if the security department people show up, you should follow their instructions. That's the number one thing you three should do for now. Natsuhiko felt a little lonely. Ina acknowledged what they had to say, but in the end she still treated them like children. Regardless of their student-teacher relationship, her way of thinking sided with the adults, the security department, if anything. Damn it, is there nothing we can do? Is there no way we can get Professor Tsubakiyama on our side? As soon as Natsuhiko pondered that question, Mashido suddenly spoke up. I understand it, Miss Ina. We'll do as you say. Huh? Natsuhiko was surprised, but Ina spoke in relief. Thank you. It makes me happy as a teacher to have such obedient students. It's because I've always respected you, Miss Ina. Okay, Natsuhiko, Salu, let's go. Hey, hold on a second, Mashido. It's a little too sudden for you to just say, just come. At around the same time Mashido said that, she used telepathy. Don't say anything, guys. I'll explain the situation once we're outside. Let's just run away for now. What exactly did she mean by run away? Natsuhiko was bewildered, but one look at Mashido's tense expression stopped him from asking her. Yeah, okay. Roger. Mashido nodded and then spoke to Ina. Okay, if you'll excuse us, Miss Ina. I'm sorry I couldn't be more helpful. They left Ina alone in the classroom with an apologetic look on her face. And with that, we're going to wrap this episode up here. I just wanted to wait for that conversation to wrap up. Because, you know, it's hard to end an episode and start another one midway through a conversation. Probably even harder to listen to be fair. Unless you're just watching the whole way through the playlist or something. If you're doing this on a day-by-day basis. Anyway, that didn't really help, to be fair. And there's no way she's going to turn herself in, obviously. So, I guess we're running again, but we've got no one else to go to now. So is this when we're going into Labo, then? I guess we'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for getting out for me, and I'll see you in the next one.